Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to America Talks Live. I'm Steve Malzberg. It is Monday. We are in our New York City studios. And before we get it all started, Pete Hoekstra joins us momentarily. But first, Ed Berliner has all the latest.
Thank you, Steve. Ask and demand all you want, President-elect Trump. There will not be an apology from the Hamilton cast to you or the Vice President-elect. The president-elect, Donald Trump that is, attacked the Hamilton cast on Twitter, texting the cast was rude and making their post-show statement to Pence and the audience. Trump also continues attacking CNN for discussing his tweets.
Why do you care? In other words, who's to say that he can't do that, make a comment, spend 5 minutes on a tweet and making a comment?
More people are liking Donald Trump at the moment. According to the latest Politico Morning Consult poll, his favorability is up 9 points since the election. For more on these stories, start clicking away to Newsmax.com. I'm Ed Berliner. Steve, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, we had 4 cops shot in 3 states over the weekend. It is sick. It's outrageous. And if any of the suspects had been killed instead of the cops, we'd have people like Hillary supporters and Obama supporters and Loretta Lynch supporters and those people themselves shouting, evil, evil cops. San Antonio, a cop killed while writing a traffic ticket. Detective Benjamin Marconi, 50 years old, a 20-year veteran of the force. St. Louis, a cop shot twice in the face while sitting in his car. Gladstone, Missouri, a cop shot during a traffic stop. Sanibel, Florida, a cop shot again while sitting in his car. We have now had 56 police officers shot and killed while on duty in the year 2016, and it's not over, and many, many, many more have been shot and attacked and wounded seriously in many cases. It's an outrage. It's a culture created by the left in this country and by the media in this country. Make no mistake about it. Now, I want to get to something else that took place over the weekend, which was outrageous. A Gold Star father returning on a plane with his son's body. Watch.
Stuart Perry, his wife, and his daughter were flying from Sacramento to Philadelphia, headed to Dover Air Force Base. While connecting in Phoenix, they were at risk of being late for their second flight, so the American Airlines crew asked that the Gold Star family be allowed to deplane first. That did not sit well with first-class passengers.
And to hear the reaction of the flight being delayed because of a Gold Star family and the first class cabin booing that was really upsetting. And it made us...
You're supposed to say it made them cry again, which he did say, believe me. I don't know why you didn't hear it. That's the culture we're in right now. That's what leftists in this country, which, by the way, read the polls. 22% of people describe themselves as liberal or progressive. 22%. They're a minority. And the media tries to make you think they're a majority. And if you don't follow what they all believe, you're sick, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a bigot. And that's what they do. They boo a Gold Star family with the coffin of their hero son on board, because they're delayed for 2 seconds more while that coffin is escorted off the plane. Mitt Romney met with Donald Trump over the weekend in New Jersey and then said this.
We had a far-reaching conversation with regards to the various theaters in the world where there are interests of the United States of real significance. We discussed those areas and exchanged our views on those topics. Very thorough and in-depth discussion in the time we had, and appreciate the chance to speak with the President-elect and look forward to the coming administration and things.
Governor, do you repudiate the comments?
All right, so will it be Romney or Giuliani for Secretary of State? I say Romney. We'll see if I'm right. Maybe some announcements today, later on. We also had Mike Pence, who went to see the play Hamilton and was greeted this way. More insignificant leftists explaining their ignorance and their rudeness, but that's what you expect from them. At least they weren't breaking things and hitting people. And then after the show, the radical left-wing cast said this.
But we truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us. This wonderful American story told by a diverse group of men and women of different colors, creeds, and orientations.
Meanwhile, some of the people that he represents, I mean, he chose to be the spokesman, are some of the most intolerant people on the face of the earth. They don't want freedom of speech. They don't want freedom of ideas. They don't want an exchange of ideas. And how dare he lecture the vice president-elect? And Pence, though, took the high road.
Well, first off, my daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed the show. Hamilton is just an incredible production and incredibly talented people, and it was a real joy to be there. And you know, when we arrived, we heard a few boos and we heard some cheers, and I nudged my kids and reminded them that's what freedom sounds like. And but at the end, I did hear what was said from the stage, and I can tell you, I wasn't offended by what was said. I'll leave to others whether that was the appropriate venue to say it. But
all right, and Donald Trump was offended. He tweeted a bunch of stuff out, including this. Let's put it up. The cast and producers of Hamilton, which I hear is highly overrated, should immediately apologize to Mike Pence for their terrible behavior, and they should. Joining us now, former Congressman and former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, senior fellow of the Investigative Project on Terrorism, and author of Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya, the one and only former Congressman Pete Hoekstra. Hello, sir.
Hey, good to be with you, Steve.
Good to talk to you, sir. So let me ask you, there was a lot of talk and speculation that you were in the running for the CIA post that, of course, you did not get. Are you still, were you in the running? Are you still up for possibly another position in the administration, and do you want to serve?
Oh, I worked very hard after the convention to get Mr. Trump elected as president. We carried the state of Michigan for Mr. Trump.
Yes, you did.
First time since 1988 that went for a Republican. If the Trump administration, if Mr. Trump, Mike Pence, if they see a role for me in the administration, I would be more than happy to discuss that with them. It would be an honor to serve with this team.
Did you talk to the president-elect about the CIA position?
I did not talk with the president-elect about the CIA position. I'm not sure exactly what they all went through that process, but I feel good. Mike Pompeo, a great choice.
Great man.
A great man. He's going to make a great CIA director, along with Mike Flynn, Jeff Sessions. It's clear that Mr. Trump is selecting people that are going to carry forward the vision that he talked about during the campaign.
Absolutely. And let me ask you about Sessions, because they took a deep breath time out from attacking Bannon, and now they're going after Sessions for things that he allegedly said 30 years ago, some things that he admitted he said over 30 years ago. But since then, he has a stellar record. He's prosecuted the KKK. He's appointed the first black chief of staff, I believe, of the Senate Judiciary Committee, et cetera. So what do you make of people like Chuck Schumer threatening a filibuster, maybe against Sessions and maybe against Supreme Court nominees as well?
Well, I think it's very clear. There's not going to be any honeymoon for this president, for his team, and those types of things. The left have been, really disappointed that Americans turned them out of office. They can't quite figure out, how did that happen? The American people must have been wrong. So we are still going to exercise every right that we have to stymie this administration, whether it is, booing and lecturing the vice president at Hamilton, whether it is going after Bannon or whether it's going after Sessions. These folks are bitter. They are angry. They can't figure out why they lost. You can expect this to continue for the next 4 years.
Yeah, no, I am absolutely sure. And they really just don't get it. They still think they're right. As a matter of fact, Chuck Schumer said yesterday that the states that Trump won, many of them, he won on democratic values or democratic themes. That's how out of touch they all are.
They really are. I mean, you take a look at Michigan. Romney lost the state by 9 points. If Trump won that state based on Democratic messages, you'd wonder why weren't the Democrats articulating that message, and they would have won by 9, 10, 12 points. Instead, they lost. No, they have very much the wrong message for Rust Belt America, for that area of the country, as they have for most of the rest of the country. Remember, Trump's going to get somewhere around 306 electoral votes.
Yep, absolutely. With Michigan, I think it's exactly 306. Let me ask you, what do you make of Romney meeting with the president-elect, and also then, it's out there that he's up for Secretary of State. And when I heard Kellyanne Conway this morning asked whether it would be Giuliani or Romney, she went on to tout the credentials of Romney. I'm beginning to wonder, how shocked would you be if Mitt Romney were nominated to be Secretary of State?
Well, like most of America, I'd be very, very shocked. But it also says don't underestimate Donald Trump. If he has identified Mitt Romney as the person that he wants that can carry out his agenda, and it will be his agenda. Mitt Romney will be responsible for perhaps influencing it, but carrying out Donald Trump's agenda. This demonstrates how big Donald Trump is, that he can find room in his cabinet for someone that he sparred with pretty aggressively with during the primary and even the general election. But again, Donald Trump is about getting results, and if he thinks that Mitt Romney can help him get his agenda accomplished, I'm glad that he would offer Mitt the job, and I'd be excited that Mitt would take the job, because it is about getting things done and moving on. Absolutely, and we got 30 seconds, but I love now the media. Now all of a sudden they love Romney. Oh, he moderates compared to Trump. He's a breath of fresh air. He's a great man. Of course, they couldn't stand his guts when he was running against Obama. Right. He was killing people in his business, giving them cancer by taking away health care. Remember that one? Yep. The bottom line is he's putting together a great team. Yes, he is. He is. And I wish you all the luck, because I think the world of you, we all do here, Congressman, and you would be a great, great addition to the administration if they so desire. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll make contributions in other realms as you've been doing. Thank you, sir. Great to see you. Up next, the panel, ladies and gentlemen, including Carol Roth and Julio Rivera. Well, not including. I mean, that's the panel. They'll be here, and you will too. Stay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, every time I hear sirens out my window, because I'm overlooking Fifth Avenue, and I'm a few, about 15 blocks or so from Trump Tower. And every time I hear the sirens, but we hear sirens all the time, I'm thinking, okay, it's the Trump motorcade, but I don't know. I can't tell. So I don't know if it is or it isn't. All right, it's Malzberg panel time here on America Talks Live. By the way, 877 Newsmax if you want to weigh in. 877 Newsmax. Carol Roth, billion-dollar deal maker, TV personality and host, business advisor, and author of the New York Times bestseller, The Entrepreneur Equation. She also went to Game 7 of the Cubs and who the heck did the Cubs beat? Cleveland. Yeah. How could I forget? And Julio Rivera, who did not go to Game 7, but he and I are Met fans. Newsmax insider, conservative activist, and host of the Julio Rivera Show on Lanterns Radio Network. All right, guys, I want to tell you guys a little story. Last night I was invited by Mort Klein, the head of the ZOA, Zionist Organization of America. He was a guest a week ago today on this show. And my son and I were invited, and we went to their annual gala at the Grand Hyatt, 42nd Street, right off between Lex and Park here in New York City. And we got there at the end of the cocktail hour, so it started 5. We got there about 5 to 6. And there were protesters in front of the hotel. I'm not talking about thousands or even 1,000, but there were maybe a couple of hundred or so, 250, and they were blocking the entrance to the hotel. Now, I can't imagine that the entrance to the hotel is public property. So I said to the cop, I said, okay, one cop, I said, and by the way, no bigger supporter of police than me, and I'm a former PBA Man of the Year here in New York City. And I said, my son and I have to get in. We're going to the dinner. He said, I don't think you're getting in. I said, really? And then I went over to walked a few feet and went to another cop. I said, my son and I really have to get into the dinner. He said, they're blocking the entrance. I don't see how you're getting in.
And what I should have said was, are you kidding me? What? Aren't I the law-abiding person? Don't I have a right to enter that building? Well, aren't you going to clear a path? But the doorman for the building, the guy who hails the cabs and all that, happened to hear me, said, come here, follow me. I said, where are we going? He said, I'm taking you in through Grand Central. He took us around and back of the protesters and in the side door into the lobby. So, I just can't believe, Julio, that New York City cops wouldn't do their best to escort civilians. I didn't throw around Newsmax or anything. I just said I got to go to the dinner. And they said, no, you probably can't go.
Yeah, it's insane. I think that these, and you get the police being told in a lot of instances, and we saw it in Baltimore, to let protesters have their way, and that they're not really trying to maintain the civility. I mean, you weren't doing anything wrong. There was no reason for them to try to infringe on your right to go where you needed to go. But, this is part of, unfortunately, where we find ourselves. Like, the one thing that the liberals did, they lost the election, so they don't have leadership any longer. They don't have control of leadership, but they're trying to win thought leadership. They're trying to convince people, because that's all they have left now at this point. They invested, if you look at the people who invested in Hillary Clinton, who did it? Hollywood, people on Broadway perhaps, and people that are in the media were the ones that were really backing her up.
Carol, I want to go to Carol. To me, I don't blame the police. This is Bill de Blasio's police force now. So that's why we have homeless people in the street, and urination is not a crime anymore in the street, and drinking is not a crime anymore in the street, and all the while cops are attacked here and around the country. So I'm not blaming the cops. This is what they're told to do. They don't just decide, well, I'm not going to do anything. They're told to just stand down.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Your rights are your rights until they infringe upon other people's rights. But what kills me about this entire thing, Steve, is do these protesters have any idea what they're protesting? I bet if you went around and said, okay, what specifically are you protesting?
Well, you know what they were, Carol, let me interrupt. You know what they were chanting? They were shouting down Steve Bannon, who was supposed to reportedly be at the event last night and couldn't make it for whatever reason. But they were chanting against him.
Right. So they were going to the Jewish organization and ranting and not letting people in because they're pro-Israel or something like that. It literally, everything that they do makes fundamentally no sense. And I'm all for protesting, but you have to have a reason that you're protesting. You have to have an outcome. I feel like they need to be working on that.
All right, let's move to the national scene here and the administration and what it's shaping up to be. Some great picks by Donald Trump. But what do you think, Julio, about the prospect, we discussed it with Pete Hoekstra, the prospect of Secretary of State, I can't believe I'm saying it, Mitt Romney?
Well, I mean, he certainly has a better idea than what's been going on the last 8 years. And, maybe this is truly a cooling of that hostility between establishment elements that wanted to stop Donald Trump from becoming the president. I mean, let's face it, Mitt Romney was all behind, Evan McMullin, and they were leading that Never Trump effort. So to see them working together, I think really shows pragmatism on the side of, Donald Trump. He realizes that we have to work together in order to achieve these objectives. And if he's willing to talk to Mitt Romney, he's really taking the high road and showing himself to be the bigger man after a primary and a general election where people didn't always, weren't so fast to accuse him of that.
Yeah.
But here's the problem is that I like Mitt Romney being involved, but the question is, what's his highest and best use? And if you go back to when he was campaigning, we all said he's very strong on business and domestic policy, maybe not so much on foreign policy. So of all the places that you could utilize his business talents, why would you put him as Secretary of State? That fundamentally makes zero sense to me. I think that it's great that he's involved. I just don't think that that's where I would slot him.
Yeah, no, I got to tell you, I couldn't agree more. I'm just shocked that as vicious as Romney was, and don't forget, you can't chalk it up to, well, like Ted Cruz, they were in a vicious primary and Trump called him name. I mean, Romney started it and Romney continued it and Romney gratuitously did it. And I think it speaks volumes, though, Julio, to who Donald Trump really is, that he would even entertain Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did what he needed to do to win, the presidency. And then there were times within there, and he was certainly attacked and very unfairly at times by the establishment. But if he thinks that there's a use for him to try to make the country better, he's willing to take that chance. And, you know, at the end of the day, I've always said this is about legacy for Trump. I think he wants to have a successful presidency. You know, he's obviously, you know, older. He's the oldest president ever at the time he's going to be sworn in. So if it takes using Mitt Romney to make the country better, whether it's through foreign policy, whether through its, you know, commerce or business or whatever capacity he helps the administration, he's willing to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Carol, let me ask you about what we saw at Hamilton. I even hate to use the name and give them publicity, but the booing of the crowd was outrageous enough. But the lecture from that creep, and that's, in my opinion, he's a creep to do that, from the stage was just outrageous.
It just wasn't appropriate. And as so many people have said, you know, you had invited somebody into your house, into your theater as your guest. And so when you invite someone into your home, that's not the way you treat them. This was not a conversation. This was not an exchange of ideas. This was a lecture and an ambush, and there was zero way for Mike Pence to respond back. So I just think at the end of the day it was tacky, and I think it was unfortunate because Hamilton's done a great job in getting young people and all kinds of people interested in history and in politics. And so I think that they should be the ones to be sort of above the fray and continue the dialogue on more of a fair and even playing field.
Julio, what'd you think of the whole spectacle? And of course, Pence took the high road and said he doesn't want an apology. And of course, Donald Trump is insisting upon one.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, they did it to the wrong guy because, I mean, Pence is such a class act and such a stand-up guy that you weren't going to get a nasty rebuttal or response out of Mike Pence. You know, and he said exactly what needed to be said. And it's true, man. People do have freedom of speech, but there's a certain lines you don't cross. And Carol's absolutely right. I mean, he came in there as a guest thinking this is, a space where he certainly wouldn't be attacked or be held to account in front of, and these celebrity people, you got to look at it like this, right? They're judging him when he hasn't had a day as the president yet, Donald Trump and his presidency. They're assuming that somehow he's not for all people. And you're seeing, and it's such a hypocrisy because you saw 15, 20 years ago where Jesse Jackson was praising Donald Trump for helping the black community. And he's done so much for inclusion. And then these people are just demagoguing him with really no basis.
Absolutely. And Carol, when they talk about Trump being anti-gay, from the beginning, Trump said, I don't care what bathroom anybody uses, which ticked me off, okay, as a social conservative. But what has he ever said or ever done or ever insinuated that's anti-gay?
Nothing. I mean, the reality is that up until recently, Donald Trump was a Democrat, and he has been very socially conservative. He's held up the LGBTQ flag. He's invited Caitlyn Jenner in to use whatever restroom. This is not a concern of his. This is something that the left has taken and made a point of hysteria with no basis behind it, and it's completely frustrating. And I'll tell you something else, Steve. One of the other issues.
Right, you're gonna have. You know what? Because we like you so much, and Julio, we're gonna bring you back after the break, and you could continue with that. Also, we're gonna talk about and hear from John McCain. We're gonna talk about what Barack Obama is threatening to do, and also the latest from Bernie Sanders. It's all next with the panel. Stay here.
Newsmax.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the panel. Carol Roth, billion-dollar deal maker, TV personality and host, business advisor, and author of the New York Times bestseller, The Entrepreneur Equation, and Julio Rivera, Newsmax insider, conservative activist, host of the Julio Rivera Show on Lanterns Radio Network. You know what I had over the weekend, guys? How many times growing up have you seen in a Western movie or something, give me a sarsaparilla?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I never knew. You guys know what a sarsaparilla is?
It's a spice, right?
Nah. Julio?
I have no idea.
I had no idea. You know what it is? It's white, clear root beer.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yum.
That's what it is. Sarsaparilla. Who knew? See? Good. I felt so dumb, and now I feel so smart because you two smart people didn't know either. All right. Carol, you had a point you were making before the break, then we'll move on. What were you going to say?
Yeah, just really quickly, I would say the other thing with Hamilton is that not only was Mike Pence a guest, but they had an audience filled with guests who paid a lot of money for those tickets. So again, just not the right time and not a way to treat your guests.
All right. This notion, guys, that Donald Trump isn't going to follow through on his campaign promises, it was all rhetoric, and the left-wing media is just anything that anybody he appoints that would dare indicate that he will carry it out. Oh my God, like a surprise. So John McCain was at this forum and he was asked about waterboarding, which I believe Trump wants to bring back. I certainly would like to see come back. And I understand and respect John McCain. He was a prisoner of war. I understand that. But that doesn't give him carte blanche from being criticized by me or anybody else. And here's what he said.
You've got the Geneva Conventions, which we're signatories to, which prohibit waterboarding. And we now have a law. Now, prior to that law, we just didn't do it until this administration. The CIA decided to do it. They cannot do that. If they started waterboarding, I swear to you, there's a whole bunch of us that would have them in court in a New York minute. And there's no judge in America that wouldn't say they're in violation of the law because it's specifically in law now prohibited. So I don't give a damn what the President of the United States wants to do or anybody else wants to do. We will not waterboard.
I mean, you know what, Carol? Well, let me go to Julio. Julio, you're shaking your head vigorously. I mean, you don't give a damn what the President of the United States wants to do or anybody else, really? If the Congress did change that law, you'd have to give a damn.
Yeah, I don't think these rogue renegade nations and, like ISIS and these organizations should be afforded those protections. I mean, look at what they do and the way that they brutalize as they grew their caliphate. They were throwing gay people off of buildings strapped to chairs. They were killing and beheading Christians that refused to convert over. And listen, waterboarding is enhanced interrogation techniques. It's not torture. Nobody ever dies from waterboarding. You know what we do through waterboarding? We acquire information which keeps America safe. And when the Bush administration did it, they were very successful, and we did not suffer these attacks on our soil that we've been suffering under Barack Obama.
Right, Carol, our own troops are waterboarded, not easy for me to say, to prepare them for what they may be up against if they, God forbid, are captured. So it's to me, I'm with Julio 110% here. I mean, McCain goes on to talk about how do we claim the moral high ground. I mean, this isn't plucking their eyeballs out, for crying out loud.
I think you have to fight fire with fire, and I think that they need to repeal any laws that binds their hands. This is not something, as Julio said, that's going to be done on a widespread basis in the general population. This is done in very specific situations when we're trying to fight terrorism. So I think you need to use whatever means are necessary. And this whole kumbaya, oh, it's mean to waterboard thing is the exact wussification of America that put Trump in the White House in the first place.
Yeah, you're darn right. The wussification of America. It's on every single level. Let's not even talk about what's going on the college campuses right now with the hand-holding and the head stroking and the whole thing. Okay, Barack Obama. My great hope was he would follow in the footsteps of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and hopefully just go away when his term is up. But we never could expect that, I don't think. And now what he told the New York Times, a paragraph that was buried somewhere, let's put that up and I'll read it to you. There it is. This is from the New York Times, November 19th. For Mr. Obama, a return to the partisan fray was never the intention, but that vision assumed that his presidential legacy would be protected and nurtured by Mrs. Clinton in the Oval Office. So, I'm sorry, Julio, this man is all about himself. He cannot help himself. It's I, me, and he will not take the route that his predecessor has taken over all these many years and not criticize or weigh in on what he has done. He will be speaking out against Donald Trump every step of the way.
Yeah, he's fighting for his legacy still here in the waning weeks of his administration. Last week, in one day, he dropped a record amount in one day of regulations on the American
over
people.
Over 500 pages, yeah.
Exactly, and you still have to figure out the budget for next year, and you got to consider whether or not that's going to be filled with money for all those special interests and all that green energy and all that other stuff that they're trying to pass along. So, I mean, listen, Barack Obama does not know the definition of the term lame duck, and we're going to see it till the day that Trump is inaugurated. He's going to be fighting.
Yeah, and Carol, of course, also we're talking also about after he's gone and after Donald Trump is sworn in. So talk about that. But then also to Julio's point, I'm dead sure that he's going to let the UN Security Council declare a Palestinian state with 67 borders. The security. Look, he already had the security. Our representative at the Security Council not veto a bill condemning the U.S. embargo against Cuba a few months ago.
I know. This is insane. Let me go back to Barack Obama first, post-office. He can talk as much as he wants. I don't think anyone will be listening. I don't think he'll have any power stronghold. I don't think anyone will care what he has to say once he's out of office. And I think he will go and do the speaking circuit and live happily ever after. And I just don't think that anybody's going to pay any attention to what he has to say afterwards. Now, in the interim here, yes, he's probably going to try and do everything he can. And guess what? Day one of the Trump administration, they're going to start to roll it all back again. So he can do it. He can, be in a whirlwind and a frenzy and try to do all of these things. But at the end of the day, he's not going to have much of a legacy here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, let's listen to something that Bernie Sanders had to say. And I think it's interesting also, the the Clinton campaign, Ed Klein sat here and told me that Hillary was crying hysterically to a friend on the phone the morning after the election, 6:30 in the morning. And from what she could understand, she was blaming Comey and Obama for not reining in Comey, quote unquote. And then subsequently we hear from the Clinton campaign that they blame Comey. We heard Podesta say that it was a coup by the FBI agent. Was it Podesta? I played the bite. I think it was Podesta. I could be wrong. It was one of the hierarchy of the Clinton campaign. And then we had another one, Karen Finney, blaming Bernie's misogynistic group that supported Bernie. I don't even know what they're talking about. So it's everybody's fault but Hillary. But listen to what Bernie had to say about moving forward in the Democratic Party and working possibly under the Trump administration.
I think we need to protect workers. We need a good strategy to make sure that, in fact, we push our agenda. Look, on the issues, Chuck, that I'm talking about, these are the things that I have been fighting for years. But there is no compromise, none whatsoever, on bigotry. There is no compromise on climate change because the future of the planet is at stake. We need a strategy, and I'm going to work on this strategy, to go to Michigan, to go to Wisconsin, to stand with working people, to demand that we reverse the decline of the American middle class.
So, Julio, you're laughing, Carol. So he shook his head last time the strongest. Now you're laughing the loudest. So go ahead.
God bless Bernie. He really should be running for president of the Condo Association. He's been in government for decades. He ran for president. He's just now going to work on a strategy. I mean, all I've got to say, as they would say in the South, is bless his heart.
Yeah, Julio.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. This is a guy that called climate change a bigger threat to society than ISIS. I mean, he lost, okay? What they need to do is they need to come further to the right and work with us now, because Barack Obama certainly pulled the country further to the left, and the country rejected that. That's why we had the election that we had, and Donald Trump ascended to the presidency. So now let's give him a chance without judging him. He said in that quote, bigotry. When has Donald Trump ever espoused bigotry? And then there was a lot of hatred that was going on at those Trump rallies that was precipitated by Democratic operatives that were sent there to specifically incite violence.
Yep, absolutely. They admitted that, those two on the tape, Project Veritas, and they got kicked off. All right, guys, Julio and Carol, it is always great to see you. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, guys, when we come back, folks, it's Gimme 5, and then Bill Tucker has a special report you're not going to want to miss. On the Gimme 5, the left is going nuts over Senator Jeff Sessions being nominated as Attorney General of the United States. Meanwhile, they remain silent, of course, during, in my view, the racist Department of Justice policies under both Eric Holder and now Loretta Lynch. Also, misrepresentation Selective editing by NBC. They've done it again. They always, well, they do it a lot. You're going to see what it is. Don't go away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Give Me Five. You know it, you love it, and you got to have it, so I deliver. The left has gone nuts over the nomination of Senator Sessions to be Attorney General of the United States. Chuck Schumer, who served with the guy for 20 years, he's not happy either.
Well, look, like any nominee, he has to be questioned very carefully, not only about his past, but about the future. One question I'd want to ask him, what do you want to do with the Civil Rights Division? Things like that. So it's premature to say yes or no, but certainly a strong, thorough questioning of Jeff Sessions before one supports or opposes him is much called for. These are troubling things, and the only fair thing to do is ask a lot of questions, very thorough questions, and then make an opinion.
They're going to try to make him out to be a racist for things he allegedly said 30 years ago. Carol Costello was almost crying. She was so upset that Jeff Sessions got the nomination. I'm telling you, you remember Carol Costello, who loved when Sarah Palin's daughter was dialing 911 and talking to the 911 operator about how she was assaulted. And Carol Costello said, "It's the best sound ever, and you could thank me later." But she's very upset at Jeff Sessions. These people are nuts. And Charles Schumer is, he's the most insignificant political figure in Washington right now. I don't care. Let him try to filibuster. We will pull the nuclear option on you there, Chucky boy. Nuclear option, which you guys pulled a couple of years ago. The Republicans will do it right back to you because you started it. Now, this guy, Paul Butler, former prosecutor, now a professor, with Al Sharpton going after Sessions.
It's not about him being a conservative Republican. I was privileged to work at the Justice Department during both Clinton and Bush administrations, but this man is a radical extremist. If he is confirmed, criminal justice reform is dead. This is a man who loves the failed war on drugs. He loves mandatory minimum sentences. He loves private prisons. What doesn't he like? Black Lives Matter. Trump says if he's president, he's going to investigate that movement that's trying to make things more fair for African-American people.
Hey, do you realize that everything this guy's upset about is what America believes? In other words, he is in such a minority, not black minority, but that left-wing minority, because only 22% of people identify themselves as liberal in the first place in the latest poll. And even a smaller minority of the 22% worry about what this guy's talking about. Just criminal justice reform. That means blame the cops first. Sessions isn't going to do that. Sessions isn't going to do that. And then get this.
This is a man who would be over the Voting Rights Division. He would be over the Civil Rights Division, which under President Obama has done more investigations of local police departments than all of the administrations combined. So again, all of these progressive interventions for civil rights, they'd be not only dead on arrival, he'd take us back. Because one thing we've seen with other conservative administrations is not only do they stop bringing the cases, they start bringing civil rights cases on behalf of white people.
Civil rights cases on behalf of white people. You mean white people have to be treated fairly under the law as well? My God, that is reason for concern. This radical extremist, according to this professor, God help us, might bring civil rights cases on behalf of white people. Whoa! How frightening, how outrageous. You see how sick these people are? Sick, twisted. Right? White people shouldn't have civil rights cases brought on their behalf. They're white people. Okay, now, back to NBC. Do you remember when NBC selectively edited a tape of Mitt Romney when he was running for president? He was describing the process of how you place an order at a Wawa. Now, I've never been in a Wawa. Until then, I never heard of a Wawa. There just aren't any in New York. in the place where I live. There's just none. So he described the process, how innovative it is, how you place your order here and then bingo, all of a sudden the sandwich comes out here. So they made it appear as if, well, they cut out his explanation. They cut out talking about how innovative it was and how great it was and how businesses should follow that print. And they made it sound like he was like, oh, you ever been to a Wawa? You do this and the sandwich comes out here. They made him look stupid. Selective editing. And there have been several instances since, got a cold and it's tough, where NBC or MSNBC has done the same. I want you to watch this with Chuck Todd from Meet the Press and Reince Priebus. Watch.
Let me ask you a question about the appointment of General Mike Flynn to National Security Advisor. Essentially, there are two corner offices in the White House. You're going to be in one. He's going to be in the other. In February, Flynn posted a video listing bombings perpetrated by Muslims with the comment, "Fear of Muslims is rational." Can you equivocally rule out a registry for Muslims?
Look, I'm not going to rule out anything, but I wouldn't. We're not going to have a registry based on a religion.
I'm not going to rule out anything, but we're not going to have a registry based on religion. So, let's put up the first one, 122. This is put out by Meet the Press. They correctly quoted him. Priebus on Trump's proposed Muslim ban. I'm not going to rule out anything, but we're not going to have a registry based on a religion. That's Meet the Press's tweet. Now let's go to the next one, ladies and gentlemen. This is NBC News' tweet. Can you rule out a registry for Muslim? Asked Chuck Todd. I'm not going to rule out anything, says Priebus on Meet the Press. They left out, but we're not going to have a registry based on a religion. They left out the most important part of the quote. They left out the part of the quote that would quell fears. They decided to incite fear, incite turmoil, falsely represent what Reince Priebus said, because that's who they are. That's what they do. That's who they are. We are in a media war, and the media still thinks that somehow America doesn't get it. Chuck Todd, the rest of them, they're part of the 22% of this country, and they think they represent us all. Shame on NBC. Hour 2 of America Talks Live with my friend J.D. Hayworth is next, but first, Bill Tucker has this special report on the left's push to tighten gun laws and why it hasn't worked in many cases to reduce crime.
Illinois State Representative Sonia Harper wants all the bullets sold in her state to have serial numbers as a way to fight gun violence in Chicago. She wants the serial numbers on the base of the bullet so that, in theory, police can trace the bullet back to where it was bought, get a record of who bought the bullet to prove who fired the bullet. Following the advice of Chicago's police superintendent, who recommends locking up criminals who use guns to commit crime, apparently it's just too simple. Before Illinois gets all swept up in the emotion about numbering bullets, its lawmakers should look to Maryland. Maryland had a similar system in place for 5 years, spent $15 million on the program, and not a single crime was solved. In Massachusetts, the state attorney general is going after gun makers for making a dangerous product. The AG there is demanding that Glock and Remington surrender a wide range of internal documents, including safety-related complaints from consumers. There's been no outclamoring, mind you, no outcry for such regulation. Gun companies have generally been very reactive to any reported safety problems. Let's face it, a gun is a dangerous product, and it should be for anyone on the business end of a gun. The goal of Massachusetts is the same as in Illinois: raise the cost, increase the bureaucracy of gun ownership, effectively making it difficult for law-abiding citizens to own guns. Do you think criminals give 2 cents about the law? Bill Tucker, Newsmax, New York.